What if you died a failure, only to wake up as a prince with all your modern knowledge intact? Before we begin, if you enjoy stories like this, please follow the channel and share this video. It genuinely helps this page grow and allows me to create more stories for you. Okay, let's dive into the story of Kim Jinho, a brilliant engineer whose life ended in a literal flash, only to begin again in a world he'd only read about in history books.
For Kim Jinho, this wasn't just some wild what-if scenario. This became his shocking new reality. You see, in his first life, he was a guy who lived and breathed invention. I mean, a true genius who could build a working steam locomotive from scratch, or even a human-powered plane. But to his own family, this genius wasn't a gift. Oh no, it was a failure to conform, a prodigy just wasting his potential.
I mean, from the very beginning, Jinho was just different. As a kid, he was solving Rubik's Cubes at an age when most of us were still figuring out how to tie our shoes. His parents' hopes just soared. They had a certified genius, and they were beaming with pride, telling anyone who would listen that their son was destined for something amazing.
But here's the thing, Jinho's passions didn't line up with their idea of success. He couldn't care less about acing tests or climbing some corporate ladder. His heart was in his workshop, his hands covered in grease and soot. He was building these incredible steam engines, forging blades, and he even flew his own handmade plane over the Han River. To him, these were masterpieces. But to a world that values good grades over raw ingenuity, they were just useless things.
The pressure from his family was just immense. His father, completely frustrated and angry, just couldn't get it. "Why would someone as smart as you refuse to study?" he'd yell, throwing down another terrible report card. And Jinho, well, he could never find the right words to explain his passion in a way they'd accept. So he just withdrew, burying himself in his pain in the workshop, and eventually he spiraled into a deep depression. He finally set up a small workshop to live out his dream, far away from everyone. But a single moment of carelessness, a forgotten box of nitroglycerin he'd made for some experiment, and a sudden earthquake, it was the perfect storm. As the bottle slipped from his hands, his very last thought was about his own creation. "You little devil, you sure know how to make an exit." And then, just a blinding flash. Darkness. And then, light. Kim Jinho, the 35-year-old engineer, slowly opens his eyes. He's not in a hospital. He's in this lavish, ancient-looking room, and he's looking up at a man and a woman dressed in these incredible royal silks. They're cooing at him, calling him their child. He hadn't just survived, he had been reborn as a baby in the Song dynasty. As the weeks turned into months, Jinho started to piece together his new life. He was royalty. No more pressure to study, no more disappointed parents, no more worrying about money. He had literally been born at the finish line. A huge wave of relief just washed over him. This was perfect. Finally, he could just live a quiet life and invent and build all the things his heart desired. He spent his first year in total bliss, a baby genius just planning a quiet life of tinkering. But that simple plan was about to be completely shattered at his first birthday party, this huge ceremony called the Doljabi. It was here, in front of everyone, that he would finally learn the true weight of his new identity. So, as all these nobles and royals gather, he hears a name that sends a jolt right through his system: Cheongyang. He looks up at this kind, regal man who is his father, and all the pieces click together with this terrifying clarity. This wasn't just any old prince. This was Prince Cheongyang, the very same man who would become Sejong the Great, one of the wisest, most famous kings in all of Korean history. The face on the 10,000 won bill from his old life was his dad. All right, let's fast forward a few years. Prince Hyang, which is his new name, is now 7 years old, and he is deeply, deeply annoyed. Every single day, his studies are a nightmare because of these clumsy, messy calligraphy brushes that just drip ink everywhere and ruin all his work. For an engineer's mind, a mind that craves efficiency and precision, this was pure torture. So he did what he did best. He invented a solution. He sketched out this totally revolutionary design for a writing tool. It had an internal ink reservoir, a nib made of gold so it wouldn't rust, and a superfine split tip for a controlled, smooth flow of ink. He called in the royal blacksmiths and, using all his 21st century know-how, he guided them step by step to create the world's first fountain pen. When he presented this golden pen to his father, the king was just blown away. He started writing with it, and he couldn't believe how clean, how fast, how effortless it was. "My son," he declared, "this is a magical item. You've created something truly remarkable." He was so impressed, he immediately ordered hundreds to be made and handed out to all the court officials and historians.
And this, right here, is where a simple invention sparks a massive political firestorm. Demand for the golden pen just exploded. The kingdom made an official licensing deal, and soon the royal treasury was overflowing with cash. The king was absolutely thrilled with all this new prosperity. But the court's old-school conservative ministers, they were horrified. To them, this wasn't progress, it was corruption. A court focused on making money, they argued, was a court that was losing its soul. Well, the tension finally boiled over in the great court debate. The old guard, led by this formidable grand censor named Sung marched in to confront the king. They were ready to put an end to this madness. And this was the moment Hong's quiet life of inventing was officially over. His real role in history was just beginning.
The Grand Censor made his case with passion. He argued from tradition, from philosophy, declaring that a court chasing wealth was a path to ruin and tyranny. He believed in this old ideal, that true virtue was found when everyone, king and peasant, was equally poor and honest. A rich court, he insisted, could never be a virtuous one.
The entire court was silent, all the ministers nodding along with the censor. And then, a small voice just sliced through the tension like a knife. It was the 7-year-old Prince Hyang. He stepped forward, his face completely serious, and delivered a dose of cold, modern reality that just stunned everyone into silence.
His voice, even though he was just a kid, rose with this incredible fury and passion. He wasn't talking about some abstract philosophy. He was talking about the real, brutal suffering of the common people. He painted this grim picture of their lives, a world so far removed from the court's high-minded debate on virtue. His words hit that chamber like a thunderclap, forcing these officials to confront a reality they'd been ignoring for years.
And then he brought it all home with a powerful, simple question. He completely redefined what it means to be a king, not as some symbol of abstract virtue, but as a parent responsible for his family, the entire nation. It was a simple, profound idea, and it left the entire court absolutely speechless.
The silence was finally broken by the king himself. He slapped his thigh in pure, unadulterated excitement and pride, his voice just booming through the hall. He didn't just agree, he was ecstatic. He had seen the future in his son's words. Just like that, the debate was over. The old guard was left speechless, and Prince Hyang had won his first and most important political battle.
That victory, it was so much more than just winning an argument. It was a declaration. In that one moment, Prince Hyang understood he couldn't just hide away in his workshop anymore. His second chance wasn't just for him. He was the son of a legendary king, and he was armed with knowledge from centuries in the future. His real mission wasn't to invent little gadgets. It was to engineer an entire empire.
You see, the golden pen was just the start. In his mind, the blueprints for a modern world were already taking shape. Pendulum clocks to standardize time, stamping techniques for mass-produced armor, massive iron-held ships bristling with cannons, and the most audacious of all, steam-powered trains to connect the entire nation.
From a failed engineer to the architect of a new age, Prince Hyang's journey was really just getting started. His second chance at life became a second chance for an entire nation. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How can one person's unique perspective actually change the entire course of history? If this story moved you or made you think differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and follow the channel for more stories like this.